I was kneading dough for Sunday dinner when my phone rang with my son's ringtone. The familiar melody of his favorite jazz standard filled my kitchen, and I smiled, wiping flour from my hands before answering. It was unusual for him to call during a flight, but maybe he was on a layover, checking in before his next leg. My son was thoughtful that way, always making time for his mother even with his demanding schedule as a commercial airline pilot. "Hey, baby. How's the sky treating you today?" The sound that came through the phone made my blood run cold. It was breathing, rapid and panicked, the kind of breathing that comes from pure terror. Then his voice strained and barely controlled. "Mom, Mom, listen to me very carefully. You need to get out of the house, right now. Don't ask questions. Don't pack anything. Just get out." I froze, my hands still covered in sticky dough. "Sable? What's wrong? Where are you?" "I'm at 35,000 feet with 163 passengers. Mom, please. I need you to trust me and leave the house immediately. You're in danger." My heart was hammering now, adrenaline flooding my system. My son, my careful, methodical, always composed son, sounded terrified. "What kind of danger?" "I can't explain right now. Just, please, please get out. Go to Mrs. Chen's house next door. Lock yourself in her bathroom and don't come out until I call you back. Please, Mom. I'm begging you." Before the story continues, please leave us a comment telling us which state or city you are watching from. Do not forget to like and subscribe so this channel can grow and bring you more exciting stories. In the background, I heard sounds that didn't make sense. Alarms, voices shouting, the distinctive chime of aircraft communication systems. Something was very wrong, and not just with whatever danger he thought I was in. "Sable? What's happening on that plane?" "Mom, I need you to focus. The house. Get out now." His voice cracked on the last word, and I realized he was crying. My son, who had remained calm through engine failures and emergency landings, who had nerves of steel and ice in his veins, was crying. "I'm going," I said, already moving toward the front door. "I'm leaving right now, but you need to tell me what's going on." "I can't, not yet, just go, please." I grabbed my purse from the hook by the door, slipped my feet into the shoes I kept by the entrance, and walked out into the late afternoon sun. My house, the beautiful craftsman in a quiet neighborhood where I had lived for 23 years, looked exactly as it always did. The garden I had spent the morning tending, the porch I had swept yesterday, the mailbox I had painted last spring. Everything normal, everything safe. But my son didn't call me from an airplane in a panic for no reason. I crossed the lawn to Mrs. Chen's house and knocked on her door. She answered immediately, her face creasing with concern when she saw my expression. "Octavia, what's wrong?" "I need to come in. I need to use your bathroom. I can't explain, but it's an emergency." She stepped aside without hesitation. Mrs. Chen had been my neighbor for 15 years. We had coffee together every Wednesday, traded recipes, watched each other's houses during vacations. She didn't need explanations to help. "The guest bathroom upstairs. Go." I climbed her stairs with my phone pressed to my ear. "I'm at Mrs. Chen's. I'm going to the bathroom like you said. Now tell me what's happening. Lock the door. Get in the tub if there is one. Stay low." "Sable, you're scaring me." "I know. I'm scared too. But I need you safe first. Are you in the bathroom?" I entered Mrs. Chen's guest bathroom, locked the door, and climbed into her clawfoot tub, crouching down below the rim. It felt absurd, hiding in my neighbor's bathtub in the middle of the afternoon, but my son's terror was real and infectious. "I'm in the tub. The door is locked. Now talk to me." He took a shuddering breath. In the background, I heard someone say, "12 minutes to target." Target. The word sent ice through my veins. "Mom, 3 months ago I was approached by a man. He said he worked for a private security company. He said they had intelligence that you were in danger, that there was a plot to hurt you, and that they could protect you if I cooperated with them." My mind reeled. "A plot? What kind of plot? Why would anyone want to hurt me?" "He said it had to do with your work, with a case you consulted on 5 years ago, the medical malpractice suit against Meridian Hospital." I closed my eyes trying to remember. I was a forensic social worker, had been for 30 years. I consulted on cases involving medical negligence, abuse, systemic failures in care. 5 years ago, I had indeed worked on a major case against Meridian Hospital. A young mother had died due to staff negligence, and the hospital had fought the lawsuit viciously. We had won, but it had been brutal. I remember the case, but it was settled. Everyone involved has moved on. That's what I thought. But this man, he showed me photos. Photos of you, Mom, recent ones, walking to your car, at the grocery store, in your garden. Someone had been watching you. He said the people behind the surveillance were planning something, and that if I didn't help them, they wouldn't be able to stop it. Help them how? His voice dropped to barely a whisper. They wanted me to fly a specific route, to be in a specific location at a specific time. They said they needed me to verify something, to be a witness to something that would help protect you. I was desperate. I was terrified for you, so I agreed. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture so horrifying I didn't want to see it complete. Where are you right now, Sable? What route are you flying? I'm on Flight 447 from Chicago to Phoenix. But Mom, that's not where I'm actually going. What do you mean? The autopilot has been overridden. I'm locked out of the navigation system. The plane is heading southeast, not southwest, and I just figured out where. Mom, the plane is heading toward your house. They're going to crash this plane into your house with you inside. The world stopped. Time seemed to freeze in that moment, in that bathtub, with my son's words echoing in my ears. They were going to crash a commercial airliner into my house, to kill me, using my own son as the weapon. How long? My voice didn't sound like my own. 8 minutes, maybe less. The override is sophisticated, military grade. We can't break it. My co-pilot is trying, but nothing's working. The passengers don't know yet. They think we're experiencing technical difficulties. But Mom, they're going to die. 163 people are going to die because of me. Because I was stupid enough to believe those people, because I— Stop! I cut him off, forcing steel into my voice. This is not your fault. Do you hear me? This is not your fault. You were manipulated. You were protecting your mother. Anyone would have done the same. But I should have known. I should have checked. I should have— Sable, listen to me. We don't have time for should-haves. We have 8 minutes. What can we do? I don't know. I don't know. I've tried everything. The co-pilot has tried everything. We're calling air traffic control, but even if they scramble fighters, there's not enough time. The override is locked in. The plane is going to hit your house in 7 minutes and 30 seconds. My name is Octavia Desmond. I am 61 years old, a Black woman who has spent her entire adult life fighting for justice in a system designed to obstruct it. I have faced down hostile lawyers, corrupt hospital administrators, and institutions that protected abusers rather than victims. I have been threatened before, had my tires slashed, received anonymous calls telling me to back off cases. But no one had ever tried to kill me like this. What about the passengers? Can you tell them to evacuate? We're at 35,000 feet. There's nowhere to evacuate to. Even if we could get control back, we can't land safely in 7 minutes. What about water? Is there water nearby? No, we're over suburban sprawl. Houses, schools, shopping centers. If we go down, we're taking people with us, no matter where we hit. I heard the tremor in his voice, the edge of despair. My son was minutes away from dying, along with over 160 innocent people, and there was nothing he could do to stop it, unless— Can you communicate with the people who did this? The ones who overrode the system? No, they're ghosts. The communication was all one-way, burner phones that don't exist anymore. I have no way to reach them. What about air traffic control? Can they do anything? They're trying, but the override is too sophisticated. It's like nothing they've seen before. An idea was forming in my mind, desperate and terrible, but an idea nonetheless. Sable, if the target is me, if I'm the reason they're crashing this plane, then maybe I'm also the solution. What do you mean? If I'm dead, there's no reason to crash the plane. The goal is achieved. Mom, no, don't even think about it. Listen to me. Is there any way for you to communicate with whoever's controlling that plane? Any back channel? Any override of the override? I can't. Focus, baby. Is there any way? There might be. There's a transponder code, emergency frequency. If I could convince them that the mission was successful, that you were already dead, they might abort. Then that's what we do. We convince them I'm dead. How? They're not stupid. They'll verify. Then we give them something to verify. Mrs. Chen, I called out, loud enough to be heard through the door. The door opened a crack. She had been standing right outside, listening. Of course she had. What do you need? Your phone. I need you to film something and send it to a number I give you. And I need you to trust me that what I'm about to do is the only way to save lives. She handed me her phone without question. This was why I loved this woman. Sable, I need you to give me that emergency frequency number, and then I need you to tell me exactly what these people would need to see to believe I'm dead. Mom, this is insane. We have 6 minutes. Talk to me. Over the next 90 seconds, my son explained the parameters. The people who had orchestrated this would be monitoring, waiting for confirmation. They would need proof of death. A body, or barring that, undeniable evidence of a fatal incident. I climbed out of the tub and looked at Mrs. Chen. I need your help, and it's going to seem crazy. Tell me what to do. We moved fast. Mrs. Chen had a gas stove. We turned on the burners without igniting them, letting gas fill her kitchen. I took a bottle of cooking oil and splashed it on myself, on the walls, on the floor. I found matches in a drawer. Then I positioned myself on the kitchen floor, Mrs. Chen's phone propped up to film. Sable, are you ready? Mom, please, there has to be another way. There isn't. Tell me you're ready. A pause that felt like eternity. I'm ready. Mrs. Chen is going to film this. You're going to get the footage to air traffic control, and they're going to transmit it on that emergency frequency. These people are going to see what they need to see, and then you're going to save that plane. Do you understand? I understand. I looked at Mrs. Chen. Film this. No matter what you see, keep filming. She nodded, her face set with determination. She started recording. I lit a match. The gas that had been filling the kitchen ignited with a whoosh, flames erupting across the surfaces. I screamed, a genuine scream of terror, and fell to the floor as fire engulfed the oil-soaked space around me. The heat was real. The danger was real. For 10 seconds, I let myself burn in that controlled inferno while Mrs. Chen filmed. Then I rolled away from the flames, and Mrs. Chen rushed forward with a fire extinguisher, putting out the blaze before it could spread beyond control. My skin was blistered in places, my clothes singed and smoking. The pain was excruciating, but I was alive. Send it, I gasped. Send it to this number. Mrs. Chen's hands shook as she forwarded the video to the contact Sable had given her. 60 seconds later, my son's voice came through my phone. They're transmitting it now. Air traffic control is broadcasting on the emergency frequency. Will it work? I don't know. Wait. Something's happening. The override is disengaging. I'm getting control back. Oh my God, I'm getting control back. I heard him shouting to his co-pilot. Heard the sound of systems coming back online. Heard the change in engine tone as he adjusted course. We're turning. We're pulling up. Mom, it worked. We're not going to hit your house. I collapsed against Mrs. Chen's kitchen floor, tears streaming down my face, pain radiating from my burns. Where are you heading? There's a regional airport 12 miles from your location. We can make it. We're going to make it. Land that plane, baby. Save those people. I will. I love you, Mom. I love you too. The next 20 minutes were a blur. Mrs. Chen called 911 and paramedics arrived to treat my burns. They were second degree, painful, but not life-threatening. As they worked on me, I could hear emergency vehicles screaming past, heading toward the airport where my son was making an emergency landing. By the time they loaded me into the ambulance, reports were already coming through the radio. Flight 447 had landed safely at Harris Regional Airport. All passengers and crew were unharmed. There would be investigations, questions, federal agents descending to figure out what had happened and how. But for now, in this moment, everyone was alive. I was in the hospital when Sable arrived, still in his pilot's uniform, his face gray with shock and exhaustion. He saw me in the bed, saw the bandages on my arms and legs, and broke down completely. He collapsed in the chair beside my bed and sobbed with the abandon of a child. I reached out with my good hand and touched his face. It's okay. We're okay. I almost killed you. I almost killed all those people. You didn't. You saved them. You stayed calm and you saved them. But I was the reason. You were the victim. We both were. But we survived. And now we're going to make sure the people who did this don't get away with it. Over the next few hours, the story began to come together. Federal agents arrived, first from the FAA, then from the FBI. They interviewed Sable, then me. They analyzed the video Mrs. Chen had filmed, the one that had convinced whoever was controlling that plane that their mission was accomplished. The investigation was complex and multi-layered. The override system was traced back to a sophisticated criminal organization that specialized in insurance fraud and corporate espionage. The Meridian Hospital case I had worked on 5 years ago had indeed been the trigger. The hospital's parent corporation had lost not just that lawsuit, but dozens more in the aftermath, as my testimony had exposed systemic problems that led to widespread legal action. Someone high up in that corporation had decided to eliminate me, and they had chosen the most spectacular, public method possible. Crashing a commercial airliner into my house would have been blamed on mechanical failure or pilot error. My death would have been a tragedy, but hidden in the larger tragedy of a plane crash. And they had manipulated my own son into being their instrument. The leader of the conspiracy was a man named Garrison Thorne, the former CEO of the hospital's parent company, who had been quietly ousted after the lawsuits. He had lost everything: his position, his reputation, his fortune, and he had spent 5 years planning his revenge. He was arrested 3 days after the incident, trying to board a private plane to a country with no extradition treaty. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The conspiracy involved at least a dozen people, from the man who had first approached Sable to the technicians who had designed and installed the override system. They all went to trial. They were all convicted. Garrison Thorne was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for attempted mass murder, terrorism, and conspiracy. The others received varying sentences, some decades, some life. But the legal victories felt hollow compared to the psychological aftermath. Sable was devastated. Even though he was cleared of any wrongdoing, even though everyone understood he had been manipulated and threatened, he couldn't forgive himself. He took a leave of absence from flying. He started therapy. He moved into my guest room because he couldn't bear to be away from me, couldn't bear the thought of something happening while he wasn't there to protect me. I understood. I was struggling too. Every time a plane flew overhead, my heart rate spiked. Every unexpected phone call sent panic through my system. I had nightmares about burning, about my son's voice on the phone telling me I was going to die. The burns on my arms and legs healed, but they left scars, permanent reminders of the day I set myself on fire to save a plane full of strangers. Mrs. Chen became a local hero. The media loved the story of the brave neighbor who had helped stage a fake death to prevent a terrorist attack. She handled the attention with grace, always redirecting credit to me and Sable. But privately, she told me she had nightmares too. Nightmares about what would have happened if the plan hadn't worked, if the video hadn't been convincing enough, if the override hadn't been disengaged in time. 3 months after the incident, I returned to work. My first day back, my colleagues threw me a small party. There was cake, awkward speeches about my bravery, and a plaque commemorating my service. But I could see in their eyes what they were thinking. I was the woman who had almost been killed by a crashing airplane. I was the woman whose son had been manipulated into becoming a terrorist. I was dangerous to be around. Within a month, my consulting work had dried up. Hospitals and law firms that had once sought my expertise found excuses to use other forensic social workers. No one said it explicitly, but the message was clear. I was too high profile, too controversial, too risky. Sable returned to flying after 6 months, but he was changed. The easy confidence he had once carried was gone, replaced by hypervigilance and constant second-guessing. He flew perfect flights, never a moment of turbulence or delay, but his colleagues told me he was different in the cockpit. Quieter, more withdrawn, haunted. One evening, 8 months after the incident, I found him sitting in my living room in the dark, staring at nothing. "Can't sleep?" I asked, settling beside him on the couch. "I keep thinking about them, the passengers. They have no idea how close they came to dying. They got off that plane and went on with their lives, and they don't know that I almost killed them." "You didn't almost kill them. You saved them. I put them in danger in the first place." "No. Garrison Thorne put them in danger. You were his victim too." He turned to me, his eyes hollow in the dim light. "Do you really believe that? Or are you just saying it because you're my mother?" "I believe it because it's true. You were targeted, manipulated, and exploited. You did everything you could to save those people once you realized what was happening. That's what matters." "It doesn't feel like it matters." I took his hand. "Baby, I need to tell you something. Something I've never told you before." He looked at me, waiting. "When I was your age, I made a mistake in a case. A young girl, 8 years old, being abused by her stepfather. I missed the signs. I filed a report saying the home was safe. 3 weeks later, she was in the hospital with broken ribs and a fractured skull." His eyes widened. "Mom, I never knew. I never talked about it. The guilt nearly destroyed me. I thought about quitting, about walking away from social work entirely. But my supervisor, a woman named Iris, she told me something I've never forgotten. She said, 'The work we do is impossible. We're human beings trying to solve problems that have no good solutions. We will make mistakes. We will fail. But the measure of who we are is what we do after the failure. Do we walk away, or do we stay and fight to do better?'" "What did you do?" "I stayed. I fought to reform the system that had let that little girl fall through the cracks. I testified before the state legislature about gaps in child protection services. I trained hundreds of social workers on how to recognize the signs I had missed. I turned my failure into fuel for change." He was quiet for a long moment. "You're saying I should do the same?" "I'm saying that you can let this break you, or you can let it transform you. You can spend the rest of your life drowning in guilt, or you can use what happened to make aviation safer, to make it harder for people like Garrison Thorne to exploit pilots and passengers." "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You are. You proved that when you stayed calm in that cockpit with 163 lives depending on you. You proved it when you called me to get me to safety even though you were facing your own death. You're stronger than you know, Sable. You always have been." He leaned into me then, resting his head on my shoulder the way he used to when he was small. We sat like that for a long time, mother and son, survivors of the same nightmare, finding our way back to solid ground. Over the next year, things slowly improved. Sable became an advocate for aviation cybersecurity, working with federal agencies to identify and close vulnerabilities in aircraft systems. He testified before Congress about his experience, and his recommendations led to new regulations and security protocols. He found purpose in the work, a way to transform his trauma into something meaningful. I started teaching. A local university hired me as an adjunct professor, teaching courses on forensic social work and ethics in vulnerable populations. The students were young and idealistic, hungry to change the world. Teaching them felt like passing a torch, ensuring that the work I had done for 3 decades would continue even if I wasn't the one doing it. Mrs. Chen and I remained close. She joked that we were bonded by fire, literally. She had been there for the worst moment of my life, had helped me stage my own death without question or hesitation. That kind of trust and loyalty was rare and precious. 2 years after the incident, I was invited to speak at a conference on workplace violence and targeted attacks. I almost declined. I didn't enjoy being the public face of survival, didn't like being introduced as the woman who faked her death to stop a plane crash. But my therapist encouraged me to go, said it might help with closure. The speech was in a large hotel ballroom, hundreds of people in attendance. As I stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, I felt the familiar anxiety spike. But I pushed through it. "My name is Octavia Desmond," I began. 2 years ago, someone tried to kill me by crashing a commercial airliner into my house. They would have succeeded if not for my son's quick thinking, my neighbor's courage, and a desperate plan that required me to set myself on fire. I showed them the scars on my arms, faded now, but still visible. These scars remind me every day that I survived. But they also remind me of the cost of survival. Not just the physical cost, but the psychological one. The nightmares, the hypervigilance, the shattered sense of safety. Survival isn't a moment, it's a process, it's ongoing work. I spoke for 45 minutes, telling the story in detail, sharing the lessons I had learned about threat assessment, security, and resilience. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. But what struck me was what came after. Person after person approached me during the networking session. They told me their own stories of being targeted, of surviving threats, of living with the aftermath. A lawyer who had been stalked by a client, a journalist who had received death threats for her reporting, a doctor who had been attacked by a patient's family member. We were a community of survivors, finding strength in shared experience. One woman in particular stayed with me. She was younger, maybe in her 30s, with intelligent eyes and a firm handshake. "My name is Thessaly," she said. "I'm a private investigator. I've been following your case, and I think there's more to it than what came out in the trial." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Garrison Thorne was the leader, yes, but he didn't have the resources or expertise to pull off something this sophisticated on his own. The override system, the manipulation of your son, the surveillance network, that required serious money and serious connections. The FBI investigated thoroughly. The FBI investigated what they could prove, but there are threads they didn't pull, questions they didn't ask. If you're interested, I'd like to look deeper." "Help them how?" His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They wanted me to fly a specific route, to be in a specific location at a specific time. They said they needed me to verify something, to be a witness to something that would help protect you. I was desperate. I was terrified for you, so I agreed." The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture so horrifying I didn't want to see it complete. "Where are you right now, Sable? What route are you flying?" "I'm on Flight 447 from Chicago to Phoenix." "But Mom, that's not where I'm actually going." "What do you mean?" "The autopilot has been overridden. I'm locked out of the navigation system. The plane is heading southeast, not southwest, and I just figured out where." "Mom, the plane is heading toward your house. They're going to crash this plane into your house with you inside." "How much worse can it get?" She smiled grimly. "You'd be surprised." Over the next 6 months, Thessaly investigated. She was thorough, relentless, following paper trails and digital breadcrumbs that the federal investigation had overlooked or dismissed. She found offshore accounts, shell corporations, encrypted communications. And slowly, a picture emerged that was more disturbing than the original conspiracy. Garrison Thorne had been funded and supported by a network of powerful people who all had grudges against me. The lawsuits I had contributed to over the years had cost corporations billions of dollars and dozens of executives their positions. Some of those executives had banded together, pooling resources to eliminate what they saw as a common threat. I was their test case. If they could successfully assassinate me using a method that appeared to be an accident or mechanical failure, they could use the same approach on other, troublesome whistleblowers, activists, and reformers. The evidence Thessaly gathered was turned over to federal prosecutors. New indictments were issued. More trials followed. The conspiracy was even larger and more sinister than anyone had initially understood. And through it all, I kept teaching, kept speaking, kept living. Because that was the ultimate victory. They had tried to silence me, to erase me from the world. And not only had I survived, I had become more visible, more vocal, more determined than ever. Sable flew his routes with renewed confidence, knowing that his experience had led to meaningful change in aviation security. Mrs. Chen tended her garden and checked on me daily, our friendship deeper than ever. And I, Octavia Desmond, continued the work I had done for 3 decades, fighting for justice in a world that often punished people for seeking it. The scars on my arms faded with time, but they never disappeared completely. Sometimes, when I was teaching or speaking, I would catch a student or audience member staring at them. I used to feel self-conscious about that. Now, I rolled up my sleeves deliberately, making the scars visible. They were proof that I had survived, proof that love, quick thinking, and desperate courage could overcome even the most sophisticated evil. Proof that a mother's instinct to protect her child and a son's instinct to protect his mother could save not just 2 lives, but hundreds. On the 2-year anniversary of the incident, Sable and I drove to Harris Regional Airport, the place where he had made that emergency landing. We stood on the observation deck, watching planes take off and land, and I saw him relax in a way he hadn't in years. "I'm proud of you," I said, "for everything you've done, everything you've become. I'm proud of you too, Mom, for being brave enough to set yourself on fire, for trusting me to save that plane, for not giving up even when everything was falling apart. We saved each other." Yeah, we did. A plane lifted off, climbing into the blue sky, and we watched it together until it disappeared into the clouds. Somewhere up there, in that vast expanse of sky, were people who had no idea how close they had once come to dying. People who had been saved by a pilot who refused to give up and a mother who was willing to burn to protect her son. We were all still here, still flying, still surviving, still fighting, and that, in the end, was everything. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. Thank you so much for your sweet support. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.